Hello everyone, AMHarbinger here, and Resident Evil 8 is one of the most highly anticipated next generation games coming out next year. Capcom really blew a lot of people's minds when they revealed Resident Evil Village, or it's Resident Evil 8 Village, not sure. I'm going to refer to Resident Evil 8. Anyway, a bunch of new information was just revealed, and again, these are just speculations and they haven't been officially confirmed by Capcom, but from the website Rely on Horror, which has been extremely well documented for revealing a lot of great information about Resident Evil, they got themselves a hold of a lot of Resident Evil 8 information from testers who were given the chance to play a demo build of Resident Evil 8. So we're going to look through this article, and I'm going to put a link in the description for this information if you want to read through it on your own time. So according to the article, a bunch of people from the Resident Evil Ambassadors program was able to test a new build of Resident Evil 8, and they were able to reveal a bunch of information through Rely on Horror, who got this information from a website called Biohazard Classified, which they don't have a link for, but yeah. So the first set of information is the enemies. According to the article, the enemies within these areas are very pale, almost rotten skin, with tattoos on their foreheads and hands. Kind of sounds like the enemies from Outlast, the insane patients from Outlast 1. Some with armor, but not like knight armor, they're referring to Resident Evil 4, but also can be shot off. You only speak of normal enemies in this test, not of werewolves like creatures we spoke on and that we've shown in the trailer. They do speak in a distorted foreign language. Some carry daggers, swords, axes, and even spears. There are some without armed weapons. They also jump and grab and bite similar to Resident Evil 3, and you can button mash to take less damage. Some enemies will throw you to the ground instead of biting. The one with sword has a special attack that can instantly behead Ethan, and according to the source, you'll recognize the move once you've played the game. So there's apparently an instant kill attack. I mean, this was present in other Resident Evil games, an instant kill attack that it's pretty well telegraphed, so the player can avoid it. And I guess they're building on the dodging system from Resident Evil 7, which it was good, but a lot of people felt it was extremely overpowered because you can literally just hold your hands up and block almost any attack. But it was really helpful on the harder difficulties where one hit was basically death. Playtest segment environment. This part is rather interesting because it seems segment they mentioned being tested seems to be different from the information from the other test that seemed more like Ethan was in a village instead of leading up to the castle, whereas this information takes place directly within. Most rooms were bright, but few bedrooms were dark. The segment was somewhere within the castle on a higher level, and you'll need to find a key to open big doors downstairs. So class in Resident Evil, you find keys and you unlock doors in order to get into this elaborately decorated castle similar to Spencer's Mansion or any of the other past Resident Evil games. So the boss fights, this is where people really want to know. So here's where that information gets really interesting. As the claim goes into detail of a boss fight you get in the playtest. Now this does line pretty close to what we watched in the first witch we spoke of in the other test that can dissolve into insects and chases Ethan and has distinctive laugh. They also gave a name to the witch, which is referred as Olga. I'm assuming they mean here's the trailer. Let's see if I can find it. This section here. I was referring to this section in my reaction that this looked like insects that she was being dissolved into. So it may be a evolved form of Mrs. Baker from Resident Evil 7, where she was able to command insects and also transform into like a hybrid human insect in her boss fight. Once opening the door, the lady in black named Olga appeared and released swarms of insects. The player won't have to fight the insects unless she spots Ethan. She would laugh constantly whenever she speaks. So it is a lot like Mrs. Baker when you first encounter her. She did the same thing. You would have to avoid her. In this boss fight, players grab a torch to use fire to scare her off her insects to get to Olga exposed to shoot her. After a bit of shooting, she'll transform into an insect spider-like creature with long legs, spider legs, and releasing more insects coming out from her insect-like bottom. It's exactly like Mrs. Baker from Resident Evil 7. I mean, right down to the T. That's exactly how the fight played out. You would avoid her, then she would transform into an insect-like being, and she also had like a hive growing out from her vagina area. So yeah, it's exactly like her. I really hope they're not just recycling a similar boss fight. Her human remains are still there, but naked and covered in black goo. After the defeat, she melted, and some parts of the skeleton covered in the black goo remain, and she dropped an item. She also released all of her insects, to which the player will find and kill them to stop them from attacking you in certain rooms. After that, the demo ended. It sounds like a recycled boss battle. I really hope that's just a bunch of placeholder, and they're going to build on that. And the laughing, I assume that's also a placeholder. They haven't finished recording all the lines, I assume. The playtest features a handgun, probably the same shown in the developer preview, a shotgun possibly obtained from the old man in the trailer, and an unbreakable knife. It also appears the player can obtain temporary melee weapons like an axe that can be broken off with a few hits. That's great. I like that idea. We have other melee options instead of just that knife, and I assume it also comes with advantages such as a longer reach. Inventory, according to the source, the inventory screen wasn't the same as the special message video, but similar to Resident Evil 4 concept with Resident Evil 7 UI design. I mean, they did state that that's what's going to happen in the developer's preview. It's going to be a lot like the more modern Resident Evil games. The game paused when viewing the inventory like Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake. During the testing, there also wasn't a currency added, and the enemies didn't drop items. Instead of crates and vases were breakable to find items, similar to Resident Evil 4. The old woman in robes can be seen from Resident Evil 8 Village reveal trailer, was also mentioned by our source as being a merchant-like character in the game. Okay, so she is a merchant. She's not the same merchant from Resident Evil 4. She's a different merchant. As far as our source knows, she is not an enemy, but as our sources described, has many goods to sell and rumors to share. They also spoke briefly on some concept art, but they didn't speak much about it. So she's probably a brand new character, not the same merchant. I wonder if they have like a huge merchant thing going around, like a merchant guild where they just sell items to various corporations and people who need it. Maybe funded both sides. I mean, people do that in other video games and in reality. Why not here? The merchants supply the enemies, and then they supply the good guys with the same weapons, so they have a constant source of income. It's nefarious, but hey, you gotta make a living, right? Miscellaneous Resident Evil Village playtest information. It seems during the playtest, many things were getting shifted around, which matches rumors according to those from Aesthetic Gamer, who is known as Dust Golem. He's the one who revealed Resident Evil 8 before everyone else, who say the game is still a work in progress, placeholders being used as the enemies had their dialogues added while Olga didn't have her audio added during the boss fight, but the screaming and laughing, and players were told that these were actually VA lines and were just placeholders. Yeah, I knew. So yeah, I guess it's just placeholders, and she will have more dialogue as you play through the game. After the test, participants filled out a survey and had sentence session on their thoughts of Resident Evil Village. Refreshments were provided. Interestingly, they also spoke about producer Peter Fabiano, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, being in attendance at a specific test, as he reported as speaking, adding a new difficulty to triple the number of enemies in some areas. Let's call this difficulty unfair. That does sound unfair. Though our source says he wasn't sure how serious Peter was actually being, this was part of how untrue it may be. I mean, I can see that happening. A lot of people who play Resident Evil over and over again tend to look for unfair difficulty options because they love that sensation of being completely overwhelmed. So maybe, you never know. I mean, there was Ethan Must Die, there was Nightmare difficulty from Resident Evil 3. So it'll be interesting if this is true. I mean, just add more enemies and see who can get into it. I remember when Doom 2016 came out and they had Nightmare difficulty, and they said no one from the development team could beat Nightmare difficulty, and then like 48 hours later, some gamer actually beat it. So, there are gamers out there who will dedicate time and effort in order to deconstruct the game, in order to find all the exploits and try and complete the game. In other words, they're called speedrunners. Either way, this is a treasure trove of information, so this is just a basic summary of everything we just heard, but it seems from this testing period we learned that Ethan will be able to use other melee weapons. The UI is just like Resident Evil 2 and 3, where it paused the action as you interact with your various items. The currency system is still here. The merchant is a different character, a female character instead of a male character. Olga is one of these main characters you will encounter, but we don't still have any information on this situation with Ethan's child and what's going on here. Or let's see if I can find it. The werewolf, definitely we have no information on that. Actually, you do get some information on the people, not on the people, but the normal enemies were encountered. We don't have any information on this woman. This is one of the biggest mysteries right now. Who is this woman? Does she work for Umbrella? Does she hate Umbrella? Who's she fighting against? Who's she calling here? And, well, I mean, at least we got information on the merchant and all that. Either way, I'm really looking forward to Resident Evil 8. Resident Evil 3 Remake wasn't really my favorite game. I thought it was extremely rushed and it just didn't deliver the same scares and gameplay quality of Resident Evil 2 Remake or Resident Evil 7. Either way, this game does look amazing. I wonder if they have anything about VR. I didn't read anything. Oh, they did. Okay. Finally, they said a VR version of Resident Evil 8 will happen, but they didn't make any announcement until Sony is ready. So there we have it. A VR version of Resident Evil 8 will be there. I mean, Resident Evil 7 did have a VR version, and it was fantastic. I was able to play it recently. My friend got a PlayStation VR, and I was like, I really want to play Resident Evil 7. And my god, it's amazing. If you have a VR headset, you need to play Resident Evil 7. It's like an entirely different game. And they offer that mode entirely for free. They could have sold that thing as a separate product and people would have completely purchased it. Well, deserved, actually, because that game looked amazing in VR. But that was free. And if they offer this for free for Resident Evil 8 as well, I will buy a PlayStation VR just for this. But it's coming out on Xbox One and PC, so maybe I might get it for PC. If I can afford a VR, maybe. I mean, maybe my YouTube channel may balloon to 100,000 subscribers and I'll finally get that good money. Ad money. But anyway, yeah, there we have it. Resident Evil 8 rumors. We know that the merchant is going to be a mysterious new old woman. Ethan will have new melee weapons. The boss fight, Olga, is kind of a recycled fight similar to Mrs. Baker. I really hope they refine that. And there is VR support. So what do you think about Resident Evil 8? Are you excited for it? Do you care about all this new information? Are you indifferent about Resident Evil 8? You know, there's one thing I really hope that they would have revealed about Chris's thing and his involvement in the story, but either way, can't wait for this game. Looks amazing, and remember to like, subscribe, and comment. It does help me out a lot, and I'll see you all next time. Stay awesome, everyone.